It's News Extra time at KNEB, brought to you by Gehring Civic Center. Here's Kevin Mooney.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Good morning, everyone. Our guests today on News Extra are Kathy Welfl and John Randall. Very familiar names, I know, for many of you. Kathy is now the executive director of CASA, and Mr. Randall has done a lot of things in his life. Worked for Kent News Agency. He golfs once in a while, but he does a lot of volunteer work as well, and that's probably one of the main things that he's known for in this community, and he does a good job of that. Cass, we're here to talk about volunteer training classes at CASA, and I guess that's coming up real soon, isn't it?
Yes, we plan on starting our first class on September 22nd, and it will run through October 27th. It's Thursday evenings, every Thursday evening during that time from 6 to 9, and then we have one Monday evening on October 3rd, which is just a 2-hour training. And we're trying to make the training much, I guess you could say, more friendly for our new volunteers, avoiding the weekend training because that's hard for a lot of people. So if they can commit to the Thursday evenings and then some out-of-classroom time that they do on their own, it's really very, very doable.
Yeah. Kind of explain what a CASA volunteer does.
Okay. CASA stands for Court-Appointed Special Advocates, and our volunteers are trained to advocate for children who are involved in abuse and neglect cases in the juvenile court system. So they are basically the eyes and ears of the judge outside of the courtroom, and they speak on behalf of the child through written reports in the courtroom. And they attend team meetings. They become just as involved in the case as basically everybody else. And they see the child through the entire case until from when it starts to when it closes. And it's really an amazing program. And we have seen our volunteers do some incredible things for these kids.
Yeah, they do a good job. And actually, when you look at the number of kids that are in foster care and the number of volunteers that you have, there's a big margin between those two, right?
Yes, and we're trying to fill that gap. We try to serve between 1/3 and close to 1/2 of the children that are in foster care that are also involved in these court cases, and our goal is to someday serve each and every one of them. But if we can get a good training this fall with at least 10 to 12 new volunteers, we can surpass the halfway mark. We would be serving closer to 2/3 of the children that are in foster care. So we really do need good volunteers, and it except for the training, it's not a huge time commitment. It's a commitment more of your heart and your passion, and it is some time, but it's not an unbelievable amount of time. And we'd love to sit down and talk to people who are interested in doing this.
All right. How do you, for example, when you have this difference in the number of volunteers and the number of children that are in foster care in the court system, how do you choose which kids get volunteers? Is it just...
Well, we rely heavily on we call them the GALs. They're the guardian ad litems, and they're attorneys in town that are actually the attorney for the child. They are amazing, all of them, and we lean heavily on them for their guidance for that, because they tend to know about the case before we do, and they know the cases that they especially feel a CASA would be beneficial for. And so if they come to us, or if I go to them, either way, and they say this is a case we really want a CASA on, I'll do everything in my power to get a CASA for that child or children.
All right. Now, Mr. Randall here has been, you've been a CASA volunteer for quite a while, haven't you?
About 4 years.
Yeah. Okay. So 4 years, that's quite a while. Kind of explain, when you were thinking about doing this, what was kind of going through your mind?
Well, you know, I was a school teacher for 20 years before leaving the education. I've always been involved with kids. But I happened to read an article in the paper asking for volunteers, and I thought, you know what, this is something I might enjoy doing. So I checked in on it and went through the 30 hours of training, and I've had several cases that have turned out quite successful.
Yeah. And when you were in the courtroom, explain what it's like when you're in the courtroom and you're representing a child.
Okay. Well, I'm going to back up a little bit. You meet with the child. Now, I enjoy working with children, the older children who can carry on a conversation with you. And I meet with them on a monthly basis. I meet with the biological parents on a monthly basis, and I meet with the foster parents on a monthly basis. So when I get ready to go to court, I have submitted to the judge, who I answer to, my findings. And so when I go into court, then you have the guardian ad litem, who's the attorney for the child there, and the parents who are there, their attorneys. We start talking about the case, and everybody presents what their ideas are, and then the judge goes ahead and makes that ruling. But the interesting thing is the guardian ad litems that we have working with the children, I think, are probably the best in the state of Nebraska. They truly care about the children. The judge truly cares about what happens to these children. And the training that you get as a CASA volunteer, you truly are concerned what happens to these children.
So when people go through this, these training classes that Kathy's talking about from the 22nd of September to the 27th of October here, what type of things do you go through?
Well, the thing is on what to expect in court, how to get ready for court, how to get those reports ready. We have speakers come in from the attorneys, from the judge. We have a state patrolman come in talking about drugs, and police officials come in and train us what to look for when we're in a home. So when we finish it, we're really ready to go out there. And the interesting thing is, once you become a CASA volunteer, you are sworn in by the judge. And once you receive your appointment by the judge, you are entitled to access to any and all records in regard to this child. So it's really an interesting life.
Now you mentioned that you would prefer kind of to have some of the older kids.
I enjoy the older
kids a little more because that's where you had experience, right?
I had experience, and it's nice to be able to, they can express their feelings, you know, when you say, how are things going, they tell you. I've had them call me and say, you know what, John, we need to visit, I'm upset right now. And with a baby, and I have a couple babies right now, you know, you have to rely on everybody else for your information.
Yeah. And you've worked with middle schoolers a lot.
Middle schoolers a lot.
And I would imagine maybe those are some of the kids you're working with. And so sometimes it's kind of tough to get those kids to open up. But once they do, they'll tell you a lot.
I found out one thing as a CASA volunteer. I walk into these kids and I said, you know what? I introduced myself and I said, I'm going to be with you until you are placed in a safe, permanent environment. And they realize they've got somebody on their side that's going to speak for them. And people who are interested in being CASA volunteers have to realize, once they're trained, they're not just shoved out the door and say, here's a case, go get it. We provide mentors for those who might need a little push to get started, or really, you know, don't know what the first step is. And we provide that. So when you become a CASA volunteer, you know, you're well trained and you got support.
Yeah. All right, we'll take a 30-second break and we'll talk more about how you can become a volunteer.
With large, spacious rooms, a distinctively clear sound system, exhilarating images on the 5 jumbo screens, and monumental catering by the meat shop, the Gearing Civic Center is the place for your business meeting. Call West Nebraska's premier multifunction facility.
How many volunteers we got now?
Call 436-6888 or visit us at
only 3 of them are men.
GearingCivicCenter.com. The Gearing Civic Center. This is how satisfied should feel.
All right, we are back on News Extra, and we have Kathy Welfl here and John Randall. We're talking about being a CASA volunteer. Training classes are coming up from late September into late October. And right now you have 16 volunteers. Only 3 of them are men.
That's right. They're all fabulous volunteers, but we would sure like to have some more men. And the reason I say that is because sometimes we get, like right now we have a few teenage boys, and sometimes they just have a little better rapport with men, and they just feel a little more comfortable opening up to a man. And in many cases, they have lost or don't have much of a father figure at all. And so we would love to have more men, but, you know, really what we want is just some excellent volunteers to get trained this fall and get going in our program.
All right, so if somebody wants to take part in this and be part of these training classes, how do they do it?
Well, our office is at Railway Plaza, so you can always come there, but our main line is 672-2922, and that's the CASA number. It's actually a cell phone, so I have it with me virtually all the time, so people can call that. I will talk to them about the program. send them an application. We do a screening interview. We do have to do a background check on all of our volunteers. That's just a standard for all CASAs. And I might mention that CASA is a national organization. There are 70,000 CASA volunteers across the United States, which is pretty amazing. And so we are part of that, and we feel very proud to be a part of that. So if anybody would like to know more about it, or they're just not sure, they're listening this morning and thinking, oh, I don't know, I need to talk to somebody a little bit, please give me a call, and we'll sit down and talk about it.
Well, I would imagine, John, working with the judges probably look at you as somebody they really refer to for how they're going to rule on these situations.
You know, that is true. The judges do rely upon the CASA reports, and they're brought in as evidence. And I'll tell you what, they read them, the attorneys read them. And the thing I want to stress, if you become a volunteer, there's not a whole lot of time involved. You know, I try to meet with everybody once a month. The attorneys will meet with you. The people at Health and Human Services will take time to meet with you. And once a month you have a team meeting where everybody meets. And if you have a job and you can't meet there till 5 o'clock, they will work with you so you have the opportunity to meet. It's not time consuming. And we ask volunteers, though, if you decide to become a volunteer, please give at least 1 year so you can stay with your case until it's completed. And I had a case that went for over 2 years. So you never know. And the interesting thing about being a CASA volunteer, you find out how the court system works.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Once again, the number to call is 672-2922, and or you can stop by the Railway Avenue office and talk to Kathy. Either way, they need volunteers. We appreciate it, guys. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks very
Thank
much,
you,
Kevin.
Kevin.
All right. Back to you, Dan.
Hi.